Welcome to bonus episode number 9 of the Disney Guys Uncensored. My name is Drew, and I am here to talk to you about the cows of the seas, the jolly gray giants. Of course, I'm talking about manatees. Because, folks, did you know that Disney World itself has world-famous manatees? Well, sort of. But let me explain that a little bit more. First of all, I feel like I got the short straw, the drawer here with manatees. Tim's out there talking about Rafiki's Planet Watch. Bob's talking about what Disney as a company is doing about conservation. I'm here talking about manatees. And they're jolly, they're great, they're cool, they're fun to watch. But, let me tell you some stories about some specific manatees at Epcot. The Seas with Nemo and Friends. Quite interesting stories. But before we get there, again, manatees are herbivores. They actually eat 60 different freshwater and saltwater plants. They inhabit shallow, kind of marshy coastal areas and rivers, so they're not really like these deep sea animals. And they live to be about 60 years old. Those are my fun facts of what a manatee is if you don't know. But now, let's get into the meat of this. There are 2 manatees currently over in Epcot that, like I said earlier, are kind of famous in the manatee world for one to be. The first one I'll talk about is named Little Joe. Now, Little Joe has a very interesting bat story, where the second one's a lot shorter, but Little Joe. So he became an orphan at just a few weeks old. I'm not getting into the horror story of what happened to his mother. That's not important here. That's not the point of the story. The point is Little Joe was stranded, only a few weeks old. And it's funny because manatees, well, it's not funny, but manatees rely heavily on their mother when they're younger, really up till about 3 years old, where they need to teach them, how to fend for themselves, what to eat, what not to eat, shallow waters, just what to stay away from, things like that. Predators, boats, crocodiles, you name it. So, poor Little Joe stranded. And in 1989, he was found in the Halifax River near Daytona Beach. He was only 3.5 feet big and only 42 pounds. It's this little cuddly manatee. So SeaWorld ended up finding him and taking him in, part of their rehabilitation, clinic, I guess you could say. And he became quite popular because, again, there's nothing cuter than a little manatee. He was so cute and fat. President George Bush actually bottle fed him. Quite bizarre. He was famous. A lot of people wanted to see him and meet him. So yeah, he ended up touring the country. That's how popular he was. He went all the way from, he started Orlando SeaWorld. He went to San Diego SeaWorld. He was at the Cincinnati Zoo. He was back in Florida over in Tampa. He was all over the place, traveling the country, being that manatee he was, just living the life. In 2011, they decided Joe was ready to be set back into the wild. They felt that after, 20 years of, nurturing him and teaching him what to do, that he was finally ready. Well, folks, little did they know Joe was not ready. A short time after they released him to the wild, they found him in a river, nearly frozen to death. A few reasons why this kind of happened was, one, I think they kind of released him at the wrong time of the year. The waters are probably still a little too cold for the manatees, and he didn't really know what to do. He wasn't smart enough to go seek warm water on his own, right? So he kind of just almost froze to death. They found him, they took him in, they rehabbed him, and just a few months later, they released him back into the wild. They kind of lost track of him. They didn't really monitor him anymore. To be honest, they kind of thought he just kind of died. They didn't really know what happened to him. But then, in August of 2012, he appeared in a shallow river. I'll try to say this because at the Disney Guys Uncensored, you know how much I love saying odd names and how much I butcher them. So he was found in the Eton-Lottahachie River, which was right near outside of Orlando, actually. He was so skinny, he actually kind of resembled like a large river otter, being kind of a little bit of playful in the area. But again, he didn't look healthy. Again, super skinny, kind of a odd color to him. He just didn't look right. After observing him for a couple weeks, just in the wild, they realized and said, "Oh crap, that's little Joe." So SeaWorld went back out to rescue him again, and they found this, unfortunately, a ton of undigested things in his system. Right, cloth, foam, rope. He was eating pollution and just not knowing better. Again, it goes back to that original training that didn't have his mother, where he didn't really know what to eat. So he was eating the wrong things, and it was really causing him to be unhealthy and not fit to be living in the environment. So what they did was they fed him 100 heads of lettuce a day. That is a lot of freaking lettuce. And if you've ever been to Epcot in the seas, you would have seen that it's actually quite common. That's what they eat, because again, they're herbivores. They love lettuce, and you can see that they feed them a great deal of lettuce. Anytime if you get to see the manatee feeding, which I recommend, it's absolutely awesome. It's cool to see. They must be getting all that lettuce from the land. That would be my only guess. So me and the land, we don't get along, but I hate to see the manatees go. So there's not a lot of information after this. He kind of stayed at SeaWorld for a couple years. They kind of get him healthy. And then I believe around 2014, he got transferred to Disney's Epcot. And that's where he resides today, Little Joe. So he's been there, but I think around seven-ish years. And you guys have the opportunity to go see Little Joe anytime you go to Disney World. It's a cool little story, and next time you're there, you say, hey, that's Joe, the guy that doesn't want to live in the wild, because every time they release him, he gets kind of brought back in for whatever reason. And they just decided that, you know what, unfortunately with this guy's past and history, he's just not suited to be in the wild. So Little Joe. Now the other manatee there, again, very short backstory here, I don't have a lot of information on him, is called Lou. Now Lou, in 2007-ish, had an unfortunate boating accident where he lost his tail. So he was really inability to really live in the wild due to almost like a handicap, you could say, where he couldn't really swim good, he couldn't really get around, which was causing him issues. So they brought him in to rehabilitate him and kind of help him and focus him. And it's funny, when they actually brought Little Joe in, almost 7 years later, it actually gave Lou a little bit of extra, pep in his step and kind of chasing him around the tank, because again, Joe is only kind of halfway through his life, and he's still a lot of energy, and it kind of put them together. So it was great to see that. It really gave Lou a big boost, and both those manatees are seen today in Epcot. So kind of some cool stories. Maybe you didn't know a lot of that, and hopefully I could share that information with you. And the last thing I'm just going to say, some miscellaneous facts is these guys have become so popular. They have their own, Pinterest page out there. You can get stickers. I think there's a t-shirt of them. Back in, many years ago, there was a TV show called Sea Rescue. I don't know if you ever remember that. But essentially it was a show that kind of rescued a lot of different sea animals. And there was actually an episode special, I believe it was 2014-ish. I want to say maybe like season 2. They might be on Amazon Prime. I didn't do enough research to get that information for you guys. I'm sorry. But Sea Rescue, go take a look at it if you really wanted to watch that little, half-hour episode about them. I also put in our show notes a link to a Disney World page that kind of talks about manatees overall and the conservation of manatees and how Disney kind of puts out and really how can you help. I remember back in grade school, we actually as a classroom adopted a manatee. It was great. They used to send pictures to us all the time. You donated for them. And it was just a cool little thing that you could help do that. So I'm sure there's programs like that might still be involved. If if you're a manatee big time lover, go for it. But that's my take. That's my bonus episode of manatees. I did what I could with it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys had fun. But that's going to wrap up this episode. And, hope you're enjoying this Earth Week at the Disney Guys Uncensored. It's something new. It's something a little bit different. We're trying to, give a little bit of small segments for you. You guys can listen to it at your own pace. But all I'm going to say is get outside, plant a tree, smell a flower, feed the birds, do what you're going to do on this wonderful Earth Day, and make sure you listen to us every day this week for some bonus content, because we're happy to provide it to you. And as always, thanks for listening to the Disney Guys Uncensored.
Jumbo, and welcome to my Earth Week mini-sode. I'm going to be talking about Rafiki's Planet Watch in the Conservation Station. If you don't know, this is the little backstage area almost up behind Africa and behind the savannah that has a lot of cool conservation related stuff that you might not even know about. So you get there by taking the Wildlife Express, which is a train ride from Harambe Station in Africa up to Planet Watch. It's about 7 minutes on the way there and a 5-minute ride back. There's 3 different trains that run on the tracks. They're usually run 2 at a time. And originally the trains were steam-powered tank engines that were made in England specifically for Disney's Animal Kingdom. They've been running since park opened. But when Rafiki's Planet Watch closed for a little while for refurb back in like 2017, 2018, they were retrofitted to a more modern diesel electric power plant. And now they just have simulated steam that comes out of the top. The train ride itself is really cool. The cars are oriented sideways is how you sit, and you look out. Everybody looks out one side of the train. You get to see some really cool backstage of the safari in the savannah area, where you see all the pens and stables that the savannah animals can go to get some privacy, get some sleep at night, and as well as get some rest and be separated from each other. And they're all labeled on the backside, so you can kind of see how different the types of environments the different animals in the savannah live in, and how the savannah is divided up in a way that you don't really notice, since it's all made to flow together during the ride itself. So once you get up to Rafiki's Planet Watch, you'll see a huge, you'll walk up a pretty long trail with some really beautiful foliage, some nice benches you can sit on, pretty cool statue of Rafiki to welcome you there. But once you get up to the top of that trail, you're going to see a big building. That's the Conservation Station, and there's a couple different things to do in there. The middle of it is dominated by some artificial plants and a waterfall and a stage, and that's the animation experience. This is a 25-minute class with a Disney animator teaching how to draw one of a variety of Disney's animal characters. It's almost always they're going to have a variety of Lion King characters, but if the current Disney release also has some kind of animal character, they might also feature them. And you're only going to learn how to draw one character at a time. The classes run every 45 minutes, and they're about, as I said, 25 minutes or a half hour long. They were running these during COVID. They're definitely running them now, just with a lower capacity. I know during normal times, their stated capacity is 150 people. It's obviously going to be greatly reduced now. So just kind of plan ahead. This used to be a fast pass thing, though not a very high demand one. Now, this whole area is something people, I feel like, don't even know about when they're Animal Kingdom, so it's not super hard to get. But just know that you might not get the first class that you want. And these classes, very similar classes they used to run a couple years ago at Hollywood Studios. Basically, anybody, even the least artistically inclined person, can come out with almost a picture-perfect drawing of a Disney animated character that they really teach you how to do that character, so you can, impress your friends and family when you get back home for your trip with your ability to draw Simba or Iago or something. And then, because this is in the Conservation Station and at Animal Kingdom, the animators do tend to talk about how Disney uses real-life animal models and research to base the animated animal characters in the films and shows off of. Also, in between the shows, while you're waiting, they'll often have animal handlers bring some animals out onto that stage area and share some facts and kind of entertain people and talk about the animals up at the conservation station while you're waiting for your class to start. Some real neat stuff going on there. Along the sides of the inside walls of the building is all these windows, and that's actually because the building itself is actually Animal Kingdom's veterinary clinic. So you can, when you first actually walk into the building, you'll see a monitor, and that is a schedule of any procedures that you can observe that day. So this could be anything from a lion is coming in for a routine checkup to they're planning on an animal giving birth to they're doing surgery on a gorilla. And a lot of these you can stand at the windows and watch. So if you have young kids, if you have somebody who might be squeamish about that sort of thing, the monitors with the times and schedules for the medical stuff is also a good way to know of maybe you don't want to be hanging around the windows of the, window that has the surgical theater or the CAT scan machine or that sort of stuff at that time. Some of those other windows have various small animal exhibits, snakes, insects, amphibians in tanks, in kind of laboratory settings that you can observe with your standard Animal Kingdom / aquarium / zoo information cards, what the species is, why they're there, what they're trying to do, if they have that specific lizard there because they're doing a breeding program or a study or whatever. Some of the other windows, you can look into the kitchens where they prepare the food for some of the various animals throughout the park, or different grooming stuff for the animals. So just like a lot of really cool backstage stuff is sort of other than the animation experience, really the purpose of Conservation Station. And this is all totally free, and something that, because it was closed for such a long refurb, I think there's a lot of people who still don't even know that this even exists because it's kind of removed from the park itself. So once you've done everything in the building, the animation experience, checked out the small animal exhibits, maybe looked around in the veterinarian area, maybe seen a procedure, maybe seen an animal getting an x-ray or something, you can head back outside, and they have a huge petting zoo with various types of goats, sheep, pigs, and cows. And these are not really your typical farm animal goats, sheep, pigs, and cows. These are more exotic breeds of these animals. And you just have to wash your hands, use some sanitizer, and you pass through like a special gate. And then you're just in this pen with all this huge pen with all these animals. It's really cool. They have like 4 little, what I can only describe as playgrounds for these animals that the animals love to hang out on. And also the animals have like little fences they can go into. So if they're like getting too much attention or just need some time away, they can go in there, and like kids aren't going to bother them because the animals can get into these areas but the kids can't. The goats specifically just like seem to love attention. They actually have like these plastic bins of like scrub brushes you'd use to wash a car or something, and what those are for is you can you grab them and the goats will come over to you, and they love to be scrubbed down with these dry scrub brushes. There's pigs and cows. They seem to not like the affection as much, but the goats and sheep just love all the people, and they'll run around and show off for people. And there's plenty of cast members in there with you to answer all sorts of questions. And so that is a fantastic thing if you have kids who like the petting zoos or the zoos to really interact with some of these animals. So that pretty much sums up Conservation Station. I don't think this is something you have to do every time you go to Disney's Animal Kingdom, but if you haven't done it since they redid it in 2019, or you've never done it, definitely worth checking out. It does open after the park itself, either half an hour or an hour after the park itself, and it closes at 4:30 regardless of when the park closes. And we did just see the hours for Animal Kingdom get extended again, so just plan ahead if this is something you want to do, and make sure that you are able to catch that train. And even if you don't want to do the animation class, it's totally worth it just to take that train ride to see that cool backstage view of the savannah and the safari, and then check out the veterinary clinic, maybe take a quick walk through the petting zoo, and then take the ride back just to see the other side of the backstage area. And that concludes our trip to Rafiki's Planet Watch / the Conservation Station. And as always, thanks for listening to the Disney Guys Uncensored.
Walt Disney once said, You've probably heard people talk about conservation. Well, conservation isn't just the business of a few people. It's a matter that concerns all of us. And I can't help but think when Walt said these things, he had no idea how true they were and how impactful his company would become. Conservation is one of the underlying themes of Walt Disney World proper, and specifically Disney's Animal Kingdom. Now, this week has been very interesting at the Disney Guys Uncensored. We've covered a lot regarding the company's take on conservation. This week alone, Drew gave you a look at manatee rehabilitation, and Tim took you to Rafiki's Planet Watch. But our commitment to the company's causes can be traced back to our 5th ever episode, where we had a very long discussion on conservation. And sure, it's easy to look back at what the company has done and take a self-congratulatory lap around the proverbial track. But it's truly in the future where the most work lies. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our 11th bonus episode, and tonight I'm taking a look at the next Disney decade, as it were, involving the company's continued commitment to nature. And to do that, we must go back to a few months ago at a press conference in December of 2020, where Bob Chapek made the following statement. Disney has shown a strong commitment to the environment throughout its history, and we're excited to continue building on that legacy with new, ambitious environmental goals for 2030. The report that was released in conjunction with this press conference focused on 5 main areas, including greenhouse gas emissions, water, waste, materials, and sustainable design. The 2030 environmental goals outlined further included achieving net zero greenhouse gas emissions for direct operations, purchasing or producing 100% zero carbon electricity for all direct operations, collaborating with industry groups and investing in low carbon fuel innovation, investing in natural climate solutions, implementing site-specific watershed stewardship strategies at high-impact sites, serving 100% environmentally responsible seafood at U.S. parks and resorts, working to achieve zero waste to landfill for Disney's wholly owned and operated parks and resorts. New construction projects are to be designed to near net zero, minimizing water consumption and supporting zero waste operations. They're also going to ensure that all paper, wood, and palm oil used in Disney-branded packaging and products is from certified sustainable sources, and ensuring that all branded product textiles contain recycled or certified sustainably sourced content or are made from lower impact alternatives, and finally to reduce the company's plastics footprint across all businesses. Clearly these goals are ambitious. This is a company that prides itself on its conservation efforts. We've talked about it quite a bit this week. We've talked about it in the past. For me, as a non-conservationist, as it were, at least in the literal sense, I think this is an ambitious plan for Disney Parks and for the company as a whole. I think in order for this to fully work, it's going to require cooperation from guests, from people that use Shop Disney. I'm interested to see how they do with it. To me, if it means that I lose a plastic lid on my cup, or I have to switch to a paper straw, then so be it. I'm willing to help the cause. I'd be interested to see how the listeners feel about these plans. Or does it matter to you as a guest of Disney? Sure, you pay an extra buck and you get a button at Disney's Animal Kingdom and you feel like you've done your job. But maybe, just maybe, there's a little more we can do. Think about your tours at Animal Kingdom. Think about your tours over at Andrew's favorite pavilion, The Land, over at Epcot. These plans and processes are already in place in a lot of locations at Disney. It's an ambitious slate, and I do wish them the best. But join us this upcoming week for episode 110, where we bring Earth Week full circle and take a trip to Pandora, the world of Avatar. We'll talk about how it blends with Animal Kingdom's message and the untold stories of Pandora. I think you guys will enjoy it, and I know that we'll enjoy recording it with you. As always, thanks for listening, and keep it green.